One of the biggest Marlins fans is back. Loud Marlins Fan is in the house, and we're ready to talk some baseball on today's Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Marlins. I'm your host, Jeremiah Geiger. You can hit me up on X at Jeremiah Geiger2. And I want to thank you for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube, leave a comment, let me know your thoughts about the Miami Marlins. And today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. And once again, Loud Marlins Fan, or Loud Miami Fan, is back in the house. Chase, I'm glad you're doing well. You're looking good. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing wonderful, Jeremiah. Thank you for having me. Tough stretch the last about 6 weeks. Having cystic fibrosis. Not going to get too much into it, but I'm immunocompromised. I went to Vegas for a trip. Not work, no play, came home, got sick, turned into pneumonia, ended up in the hospital for about 16 days. So I know you and I have been trying to film something for really the whole month of February and into now. Fortunately, I'm back. I'm better than ever, and the season is about to start, and that's exciting on its own.
Absolutely. And we were all thinking of you, the Marlins community, and we're happy that you're back and looking good. And we're going to get right into it, talking some spring training, Chase. We got a lot to discuss in today's episode. Let's start off by talking about the good and the bad and the ugly, I guess, from spring training. Give me your early thoughts now, as it's really not early. We are only a couple weeks away from opening day. So what have you noticed? What kind of good trends are you seeing? And also on the flip side, what are the bad stuff you're seeing?
Well, the battles for positions is always fun to watch. You have a battle in the outfield, which you're still going after the starters, even though one of the bads we'll get into. But really, the outfield is solidified of who's actually going to make the roster. You got Conine doing well. You have Stowers doing well. Never on the same game, right? But they do well every other game for themselves. Then you have Dane Myers, who's quietly, I think, batting in 333 last time I checked. Maybe that changed today. Derek Hill comes out of nowhere. He's the old man out there, and he's still fighting for his career. And then you got the bad, the injuries. Jesus Sanchez goes down, and you and I feel a little bit differently about that player. Again, never personal, just on the field is all we discuss there. But his injury kind of opens the door up for another player to show if they can make or break in the major leagues. And we'll see when Jesus comes back if there's a spot for him. So that's always exciting. Edward Cabrera going down to thumb injury, or blister injury, I should say, on his fingers. That's never good. It reminds me of the old Josh Beckett days, the blisters. But you have him opening a spot in the rotation now, which, how I feel about Cabrera too. I don't think he deserves to be in the rotation over his performance in the last couple years, let alone this spring, having the ERA and not being able to really get out of any innings or first innings this spring. Cal Quantrill pitched okay today. That's exciting. You hope that he continues to get into baseball shape here. So good, bad, and ugly. The good is for me that about 12 position players alone on our roster are going to make their first opening day, and I love that. A small story here, if you don't mind, real quick. Jazz Chisholm
Absolutely.
Jr. earned his spot in the major leagues in 2021. He was not designated to start the year in the majors. At his first at bat, he hit a home run, and then he beat out Isan Diaz for that position. I love when the players earn their spots to be on their first opening day. and we got 12 players that are going to be there and earn that spot. So I'm very happy for those young players. The pitching battles are fun. You just hate bad. Here's a bad for you. You hate that Troy Johnston's not making this team, right? But there's
Yeah.
just no room for him because the Marlins went out, made a decision to bring Matt Mervis in. And when you see his monster dong home runs, man, you can't go against that because he does really have that stud potential to hit 30 to 40 home runs as long as the strikeout rate is down. So you got all these good stories that can happen. Of course, some players are going to miss it. But as I said to Troy on X and privately, I said, look, man, use this as motivation. Whether it's the Marlins or a different team next season, don't miss opening day. Make yourself uncuttable, basically. Undeniable is the term that I used. So there you go. It's very exciting. What about you? What are your thoughts coming into 10 days left?
I think it's been really exciting. That's the word I describe it, because I'm going into this season, Chase, not thinking about wins and losses like previous seasons. And it's hard to accept that as a Marlins fan because I'm so used to losing. We're so used to losing, but I'm trying to change my perspective that, look, there's so many players that are going to be playing and getting development and progressing to the next stage of their career. And you see that in spring training, and you can't help but be excited for Jared Cerna or Max Acosta or Augustine Ramirez. And I can envision Augustine Ramirez hitting 110 plus mile an hour, drives down in the gap or home runs. And I'm excited by that because I think the prospects that showed up to spring training, Joe Mack is another guy. There was a lot of positivity to take away from that, even though they've gotten optioned. I mean, Augustine Ramirez, I think, was today actually was optioned to AAA. We're recording this Sunday night, but he'll be back. He will be back soon. And I truly believe that his bat is going to play in the major leagues, and he's going to be a plus hitter for many years in this lineup. Now, that is exciting. I loved seeing the pitching side of things. Max Meyer showing strides, his progress. Robbie Snelling for a couple starts, he was throwing really harder than last year by 2, 3, 4 miles an hour. So you see that positive development, and you hope that it carries into the regular season. Now, on the flip side of things, I do got to say the projected opening day lineup and roster for the Marlins isn't very strong. I mean, we're going to just call it how it is here. The Marlins aren't, on paper, a good baseball team. They're not going to be able to compete with the Mets and the Phillies and the Braves right now. But there are, like you said, interesting roster battles and competition, and guys inevitably are going to have to stand out. It's sink or swim for these guys.
100%. And even speaking about that, you look at, I think it was Friday's game, maybe it was Saturday. They had the spring breakout game, and
I love that.
You see the potential. And
yeah,
it's I just wrote this down here. It's fulfilling to see this potential of prospects that were brought in to this organization from our past stars, quote unquote, the fan favorites who were traded. You see who they brought in, the Max Acosta, as you mentioned, the Jared Cernas, et cetera, and you see just where we can be in a few years. Pile that on with drafted Thomas White and how great that guy's going to be. He could even make his debut towards the end of this year, if not 2026. Really, this team can be competitive at the right time when the Braves are going to be a little bit older, when the Phillies contracts come to an end in 2026. They only have a couple left on the books of their current stars. And then you have the Mets. They're not getting any younger. Pete Alonso's not getting younger. He just signed a 3-year deal. Juan Soto, of course, is going to be there a while.
yeah.
But we're going to peak at the right time with the infusion of a possible veteran in the future to add to those young studs. This team looks good, and I'm right there with you with that excitement.
Absolutely. And coming up into the next segment, Right after the ad, we're going to continue talking about spring training, give our thoughts, and also talk about some injury news that has hit the Marlins. That's coming up right after this. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. If you love the no shells variety, it's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Whether you're snacking at your desk, on a road trip, or you just need a quick protein boost, they're always a go to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein. It provides all 9 essential amino acids, and these little green wonders pack a protein punch. Grab the no-shells Wonderful Pistachios if you like that easy access, and if you like the satisfying crack of opening each shell like snack meditation, grab the in-shell variety. Whether you're running between meetings or you're dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. Get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. And we're back here with LMF. If you're an everyday listener, I do thank you for tuning into the podcast wherever you listen or watch on YouTube. Share the podcast, please, guys. If you're on X, if you're on Facebook, whatever, and you know a Marlins fan who wants to learn more about the team and join the community, hop in and share the pod with your friends. Please do so. But again, thank you. And if this is your first time, thank you for checking us out also. Chase, we are talking about spring training, the good and the bad. And I got to go with some bad news here. Jesus Sanchez is going to start the year on the injured list. He is going to be out 4 weeks at least with an oblique injury. So it's one of the locks for the opening day lineup and one of the mainstays in the Marlins lineup the last few years. He is out, but I understand that you have some positivity to take away from this injury news. Let me know your thoughts on the injury so far.
I want to start out by saying this. Jesus Sanchez, great person, always smiling, wonderful to converse with. His English has come a long way over the last couple of years where I've been able to communicate better with him every year and speak with him to hold a conversation. Love that. But on the field, I've never looked at him as a opening day starting outfielder, let's say, or an everyday starting outfielder. He's a platoon guy. He's the fourth outfielder. And over the last couple years, the front office must have had the same idea because every season he was coming in as the fourth. What really was holding him on the roster was the lack of options that he has. He has none. So he's either here or he's cut. With that said, I hate seeing players get injured, but this opens up the door for Conine and Stowers to both make the team. Potentially with Dane Myers and Derek Hill and Jesus Sanchez on this roster, that held off a spot for either Stowers or Conine, who both have options left, where they fall into the DLC area of the past of, okay, we can send him down and then bring him back up when needed. Injuries happen throughout the season. You want to have depth. But again, he's a lefty bat. He doesn't hit left-handed pitchers that well. He's more or less streaky. He's either on fire or whiffing at balls that are in crazy areas around the plate. And to me, and maybe you feel the same way, maybe you don't, he's a hazard to me when he's on the field. Yes, he is the elder statesman now. He's the longest position player tenured Marlin on this team, making his debut in 2020 during the COVID year. But he was also not good enough to be traded last year, where you saw every other player that had any type of value get dealt. Jesus Sanchez did not have value to bring back a decent prospect or a name that the team was targeting, like DLC was traded for nothing to Pittsburgh. But give or take, I've always looked at him like a guy who would thrive in Colorado. we've seen him hit a
Oh
500
yeah.
footer out there
Yeah.
to right field. So, like, your thoughts on that too? And I know you differ than mine. You believe more in the player than I do.
Well, so I look at this injury, and obviously, like you said, anytime a player gets hurt, you feel bad for them and you want them to recover as soon as possible. And I'm a big Jesus Sanchez fan because I love the enthusiasm he brings to the game. And I do think he is an average player on the field, but he provides value for the Marlins because right now I look at the lineup, I look at the outfield specifically. I understand that Stowers and Conine can get more playing time, but with all due respect to Kyle Stowers, he's been awful in the first part of his career. Conine has only played a month. So Sanchez has at least proven himself where he can go out and hit 250. He'll drive in, 60, 70 runs, and he'll hit 15 to 20 home runs with the potential to tap into that further. So I think I was excited for Jesus Sanchez this season because not only do I like him as a player and I think he's an entertaining and fun personality, but if he has a good first half and something clicked in his approach where he was able to hit left-handed pitching a little bit more, much like Jazz Chisholm Jr. did. Because remember, Jazz was terrible against lefties to start his career. Last year, he improved a little bit, and he winds up on the Yankees in a really good deadline deal. So I think Jesus Sanchez could have possibly brought back not trade value like that, but been a trade deadline piece. And maybe he still will be, because right now you take away his bat, now you just have no proven power. The power is up to Matt Mervis, who's been extremely inconsistent, Connor Norby, and then Griffin Conine, who again only 1 month in to his career. So I think it makes the Marlins lineup weaker, and I want to see the Marlins win as many games as possible. And I think when Sanchez is out, it takes a bigger blow to the run production that the Marlins will have more than people realize.
I can see this. All those great comments and whatnot that you brought up. And I look at it. We just look at it differently. You saw this could be a breakout year for him, given that he's going to have the opportunity to really maybe not platoon anymore, really just get the opportunities that he has deserved in the past or hadn't gotten in the past. I think this is I hate to say it like this is the perfect year for an injury like this, because it's a year where your team's not expected to go anywhere. Our team is not expected to win many games. So from a win-loss record, this may not affect us that much. It may bring up or down a plus minus on the average runs scored for the first month of the season. Hopefully he comes back within that 4 to 6 week period or before. But I'd like to see if Conine can stay. I'd like to see Stowers get the opportunity to play more. I thought Derek Hill was the man out. I wasn't even thinking if Jesus wasn't traded. I was thinking
I agree
he's
with
definitely going to make the team. But Derek Hill really proved a lot in the spring and at least earned the fourth outfielder role, because I hate to see Dane Myers lose playing time here. I think he hurt himself last year, legit hurt himself physically and hurt himself by losing the opportunity to play for 3 months because of the foot injury that he caused by kicking the door. But I'd like to see him play a full season as well. So, next man up, and we wish, I know you do too, we wish Jesus the best, quick recovery. We want you back on the field. You're sure as heck one of the highest paid Marlins right now. So we want you to get the chance to earn that. I think $3 to $5 million is where your contract is now.
Isn't that crazy that just the Marlins salary situation right now, where Jesus Sanchez is one of the highest paid Marlins? I never thought I'd say that if you asked me at the end of 2023, but here we are,
Exactly.
Oh man, it's frustrating as a fan sometimes when you see the players that you expect so much out of and they don't tap into their potential. Edward Cabrera is one of those. We're going to talk about Edward Cabrera. We're going to talk about the rest of the starting pitching, maybe some Sandy talk, throw that in there. That's going to come up right after this ad. Do you ever check your bank account and you wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Back here for the third segment. If I sound a little bit congested, I just have a sore throat. I'm trying to push through today, get this episode done here with LMF. We're going to be talking about the spring training in this, or the starting pitching this spring training in this segment. I'm going to get your thoughts on first. Edward Cabrera goes down with a blister. I think me and you both agree his time in the rotation should be over. Just cut it loose right now, because a couple of weeks ago, I put out an episode, hey, this is his last shot to stay in the rotation. He's not going to be ready for opening day. He's going to start the season on the injured list most likely. And it's overall, he's been unproductive this spring. Does he deserve another opportunity at some point this season? Or should the Marlins cut him, DFA him, trade him, or possibly try to convert him into a reliever? What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are I wish he was traded to the Pittsburgh Pirates last year and that trade went through, because Edward Cabrera has lived up to what the fans had seen. Unless you're a diehard Cabrera fan, we've all been saying the same thing. You can't trust him on the mound as a starter. Give him a couple innings, try him as a reliever, maybe a long reliever, but not a starter. And it started really in 2023 against the Mets, or the first couple weeks in the season, when he was walking the bases loaded and he couldn't get out of the innings. This spring, where he had a chance to earn, and I use that term a lot, right? Earn your chance to stay in the rotation. He's the only starting pitcher or on pencil that was penciled in to start to not earn a chance at in the starting rotation, even though he would have been the fifth starter. This is how I kind of see it. And I wish him well. I want him to get well soon. Blisters stink, man. They're very painful. And when you're trying to thrust that ball or turn it a little bit, it's going to hurt your hands. So we wish him the best. I want to say that too. I talk about these guys like they're action figures. They're not. They're human beings, and we want to see them all well. But as fans and as media, as you are, this is just the nature of the game of sports commenting or analyzing. I see it. Sandy is your number one, and I hope he stays here as long as possible. And he's been filthy this
he's
spring.
Been great. He's been great.
He was scheduled to throw 75 pitches yesterday, and or Saturday, I should say. And he got through 4 innings at 45 pitches, where he had to go throw the remainder in the bullpen. He's just been filthy this spring. Weathers came in better shape. He's your number 2 right now. Call Contrell, the free agent, comes in. He fills your 3rd or 4th with Max Meyer, depending who's going to get where in the rotation. And then you go to 5th spot. And that's Eddie's spot, or was Edward's spot. And now you go, who's going to take his place? Again, get well soon, but he is not a starter.
No.
I would hope, just like if there's no role for Jesus when he comes back, I would hope that they're able to work out a deal where Edward can go to a second team and have one of those same face, new place, rejuvenation of your career. Maybe I know it's different voices in his head, but maybe just a different franchise would help him at this point in his career that could get through to him. One where there's less pressure, even though it's Miami, there's not a ton of pressure down here. But maybe he's putting too much on himself. He has had an abysmal spring. Again, as we said, can't get out of innings. So who do you say is or walking too many, giving too many hits? Who do you see next? We got Belozo. You have Gillespie. I think I listened a lot to our friends on the Fish on First team. They mentioned he's being stretched out for an extended period of time. Adam Mazur. Major, I like him, man. His family,
I do too.
Awesome. His dad reached out to me on Twitter. The nicest guy, nicest family.
He is.
But Adam,
Mark's a great guy.
Yeah, Adam's great. I've been listening. I hadn't been able to watch where I was in the hospital, bad service and whatnot. But I was listening to his starts, or his not starts, but him entering the game and whatnot. He did well, and then Snelling. Those are your choices. But how quickly do the Marlins want to activate their service time? Well, Major, he already has service time, right? So he'd probably be the first man up of him or Belozo. But as the new guys, I'd like to see Adam get his opportunity as the fifth spot, or maybe an emergency start here or there. Unfortunately, that would use one of his two remaining options, but it would be nice to see him get that fifth spot.
Yeah, I agree with you on Adam Major. I talked about that on a recent podcast where the exact same scenario. Who replaces Eddie? I said, I think it should be Major. I think he's done enough this spring. I think you look at what he brings to the mound. He has good stuff, a decent fastball, decent off-breaking stuff, and he doesn't walk anybody, which is the complete you need that as a starting pitcher. You're going to need to get through innings, and Major's going to bring that. Snelling, I just think he needs more time. I really do. I think he had one start in AAA last year. You don't want to rush him. I think his ceiling is very high. Maybe not as high as someone like Thomas White, but I do think he could be a very good frontline starter for many years and be an all-star. Like, I think that highly of Snelling as a prospect, but there's no need to rush him into the rotation right now. Belozo, I just think he doesn't have the stuff. He just doesn't have the stuff, and it's a great story. I remember watching him against Philly, and he had 7 innings of shutout ball against that mighty lineup. But you look at this spring training, he's getting absolutely shelled because you miss 2 inches to the left on your fastball, and it goes across the heart of the plate. It's getting crushed. It's just he doesn't have the stuff to start 25 games this season, in my opinion.
I agree. And another thing I look at in the future of this season is Yuri coming back, let's say by July or after the All-Star break in August or around the trade deadline, whatever. You see Yuri coming back, and let's just say Sandy stays on the team. He talks to front office into keeping him, which I don't think any Miami fan, knowing what we could get back for him, would be disappointed if we kept him, because I truly would love to keep Sandy on this team for the remainder of his contract. We know it probably won't happen, but if he was to stay, you go, you know what? Maybe this team can have a 6-man rotation. We saw how difficult it was last season to fill the 200 innings of Sandy, to fill the Braxton Garrett innings from the year prior. Hopefully he comes back healthy next year. But again, he missed a lot of last season. You saw Weathers go down to injury. This was not a healthy rotation team. So maybe having that 6th starter would help eat into those innings and help save the pitcher's arms a little bit more. As for now, getting back to where we are now with Belozo and whatnot, maybe you do the bullpen game, kind of take away from what the Los Angeles Dodgers did last season. They're the first World Series winning team to have a bullpen game in the playoffs, like planned bullpen game, or even in the regular season, all season long, they were having bullpen games. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot of openings here. One of those openings is not for Edward Cabrera to be in the starting rotation.
Yeah, and there's definitely positives away from Cabrera that we can talk about the starting rotation. I do think Max Meyer has been very impressive this spring training.
Yep.
Can it translate to a full season? Does he stay healthy? Does Ryan Weathers stay healthy? Remember, these guys haven't thrown over 100 innings. So I want, like, in an entire season, Weathers, Cabrera, Meyer, they haven't surpassed 100 innings in a major league year. And that worries me, if I'm being honest, because I do expect Sandy to get traded. I really do. And I would be lying to everyone that watches this if I told you I think Sandy stays. I think he's gone, and I think it's a done deal at this point. I really do. And you're going to have to pick up those innings. When Yuri Perez comes back, I don't want to see them rush him and start throwing him and going full speed. Put it in cruise control and ease him back into the rotation because he's a special pitcher, and you don't want to see any setback with his elbow in the least, because he's that good. It's frustrating because I think the pitching staff as it's constructed right now isn't going to look the same in June. And that's only 2 months. By Memorial Day, I think this pitching staff, the rotation, could look a lot different.
Yeah, I think we're both there with Sandy. I'm surprised, and with the former host, we had multiple episodes, which they could go into the and you should go to the Locked On Marlins page on YouTube and subscribe and go through the historical videos. You could see in the past, I never thought Sandy would even make it to this point on opening day. I thought he was going to be dealt in one of the off seasons, this past off season. If he got to come back at the end of last year where he could have made a start or two, no doubt he would not be starting this opening day. It's going to be sad to see him go. But again, with a negative, and that is a total negative to the fans, seeing Sandy gone, there's some positives in there where you're going to see these young future stars step in. Will Thomas White get any action? Because quite frankly, he's out of all the pitchers who have the opportunity to pitch here the next couple of years, Thomas White is going to be the one that has that potential to be the next ace of the rotation right away if he continues in the direction he's coming.
Oh, I mean, you look at the spring breakout game, and I was so excited for that game and to watch the future Marlins in a showcase event against other top prospects. And Thomas White, it just jumps off the page. The fastball's electric. The breaking ball is absolutely nasty. I mean, it's going to be a strikeout pitch for so many years. And he's knocking on the door of making a huge jump. Not necessarily to the majors, because remember, he hasn't pitched above high A, but double A and triple A, they're not far off at all. And I think 2026, if I had to guess, you see Thomas White dealing at Lone Depot Park.
Yep. I hate to say it like this, can't wait, because we know what's going to happen for him to get here. But,
right.
For all the complaints that occur from our fan base, you really got to look at everything as a global view and not just look at your street view. Don't have your blinders on. What hurt us last year is going to help us in the future. And I know we hear that often, but really, if you look at what this team now has, as I think we're the 15th ranked farm system, that doesn't make us average in the middle. That means we are a top 15 organization as a farm. The potential that we have in our rotation, and you saw in that spring breakout game of what we have as a positional standpoint. This team can, if they stay healthy and can develop, and they're doing the right things to give them the tools, this team's going to be good. And I want a team that's going to be competitive every year. I'm talking 81 plus wins, over 500, playoff berths. Look, you're not going to win the World Series. No matter how much money you spend, you're not guaranteed it. All right. But you want to be in that tournament. You want to give the fans excitement every year. And I hope to see Lone Depot filled because these players deserve it. And Sandy, to those listening, if I can here, to those listening, Opening day is March 27th. Sandy Alcantara deserves, and I probably butchered that all the time, Alcantara, however different ways you want to say it. Sandy deserves for you, the Marlins fan, to be in Lone Depot Park if you're able, because he has put his body on the line to get back to the ace form of his. And that Paul Skeens versus Sandy game, we got to be there to cheer him on. So I'm pleading to all Marlin fans to be out there at least for one game, and that's opening day to welcome Sandy back.
It's going to be absolutely electric. One of the best pitching matchups of opening day, and honestly, the entire season. Sandy versus Skeens. It's must-watch baseball. And Chase, that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you for coming on. I'm glad to see you doing well and cheering the fish this season. Let's get louder, right?
Let's get louder. We're back.
Until next episode, guys, stay safe and let's go fish.